All right. Welcome to another broadcast. Welcome. So glad that you guys are here. Today is May the 20th, 2026. I always have to think of that before I say it because the years. Anyway, so glad that you guys are here. Another great day, another full hour and then some of a lot of things that we're going to discuss. The two topics that we're going to discuss in this broadcast. In the first hour, we're going to delve into this thing that's been going around, SSRIs. What are those? Well, it's a classification of antidepressants, and you're going to want to know why. I know for some of you, you already tuned out on that. Well, why is that? But I'm going to take you through and show you how this impacts the conversations that have been going on within what we call the Black community, and we can't disconnect these things. There are many things when we look at all of these different back and forth, endless debates that we see going on online amongst us folks. There's a lot of things that are that add to that contribute to that. There's a number of reasons, and it's stuff at home. There's all kinds of things. But the one topic that we leave out is pharmaceuticals. And we're going to talk about that, the impact of that. That's going to be in the first hour. We're going to also touch on some news and stuff like that. The second hour, we're going to talk about data centers. We're going to revisit that. I've been talking about that. I know I have at least one video, well, actually two videos where we talked about that and the impact of all of these data centers, specifically the impact it's having on Black communities. You're going to want to make sure you stick around and hear that, okay? So we're going to go ahead and get started as soon as I can find my music right here. Let me see which one. There we go. I think I'll go with that one. Welcome. We're going to give people about a minute to join in, and then we're going to get started. Welcome. Of course, this broadcast has been brought to you by Samba Tree, sambatree.com, for all your health and wellness needs. Natural, of course. We got our spring flash sale is still going on. 35% off of all of our pure copper jewelry. Check it all out. Go to sambatree.com. And of course, like I said again, we do herbs, oils, powders, all kinds of stuff. We're trying to get our people back to nature and get them off of these pharmaceuticals and things like that. Check it out over at sambatree.com. We have our own line of different supplements there you could choose from. And then we even have our own line of coffee. There's a lot that you can find over at sambatree.com. All right. Thank you again for tuning in to our live broadcast. So glad that you guys are here. Another beautiful sunny day here in Arizona, Southern Arizona. This week we're under 100. So this is actually a cooler This was a cooler week for us, under 100. So we doing okay. But yeah, so it was so far so good. Every day I can get up, I can see the sun, in a clear blue sky. I'm very grateful and thankful to see all of that and all of that stuff here. We still got a lot of construction and stuff going on. As I said earlier in this broadcast, we're going to actually, in the first hour, I had to break it up into two separate topics because it's just so much that we need to in these two topics. And this is definitely not going to be the end of it because we're going to keep on talking about it. One, we've been talking about. The other is we didn't talk about this specific thing here. And the first hour we're going to get into is this thing called SSRIs. This is a special classification of antidepressants that are oftentimes recommended to people who, if you go to a psychiatrist or whatever and you're having some mental issues, you're dealing with depression and things like that, they will oftentimes will recommend certain antidepressants, right? And we'll go through some of them. But lately, RFK, he made an announcement. Basically, they're going to be scrutinizing these antidepressants because of the side effects, and we're going to talk about that. And the way we're going to do is I'm going to tie it all into basically a much bigger issue that doesn't get talked about enough, and we're going to actually turn to Halle Berry to bring that in to kind of land us into that particular topic here. So we're going to talk about that. And then later on, we're going to get into talking about data centers. My wife and I, last week, I had the opportunity to, I was in the neighborhood and I said, I'm driving around here in southern Arizona. I'm in the town Chandler, Arizona. And man, this humongous building. I mean, it was huge. I haven't seen a building that large in a long time. And I was like, oh my gosh, this must be a data center. I mean, it was huge. And my wife and I saw it and I said, Nicole, I need to, as soon as you get some time, let me drive you through that area because I want you to see it for yourself and also feel that area, feel the vibe in that area and all of that. And so we'll talk about that in a little bit. And we'll get into, and then but right now we're going to touch on just a few news items before we get into the bigger into those topics here. As always, I'm so grateful to see folks in the chat. Our favorite family members, CTO Drums, of course, Mauricia Beach, Peace of Mind. Make sure you check out her site and subscribe to her. She deals with counseling and all of that, and she is licensed, and so make sure you check her out on that. Todd Wilson, always good to see you, and Calculated Crescendo, always good to see you guys, and others that will be joining a little bit later on. So again, good to see you guys, and really appreciate you guys very, very, very much. Again, make sure you check out our website, sambatree.com. Like I said, we're running a 35% flash sale that's going on right now, our spring sale. So that will be running out soon, and we're focused on all the handmade copper jewelry. And so if you're in the market for handmade copper jewelry, make sure you go over there and grab you some before the sale ends. Okay. All right, so let's go ahead and get into it and talk about some of these things here. One of the things that has been going on that is so silly and so stupid, and it's something just to sit back and to watch this thing play out, is the NAACP have put out an APB to all of their Boule members and, here and abroad, and basically are trying to convince black folks to boycott the SEC. That's the Southeastern Conference. You have schools like Alabama, Auburn, I think Texas is in there. It's quite a few. It's a very powerful conference in the NCAA. And so they're trying to convince them because they're saying that they're telling these black students, student athletes, they're telling them, do not go to these schools because we need to give these people a lesson. Don't mess with our vote. Don't mess with the black vote. You're taking away our votes. You're taking away our rights. No, nobody isn't. No rights are being taken. No rights are being moved. This is one big fart screen, and not even the smoke screen. It's one big fart screen by the NAACP, by the Congressional Black Caucus, by the Boule class, because they want to continue to hold on to their positions where they would represent everybody in the world but black folks now, and will not do anything. We have, if you watched a few of our most recent broadcasts, we have been taking a closer look at what's going on in these mostly black precious districts that they're saying, oh my God, we're about to lose them. Well, we've been looking at the leadership of these people, the leadership with black faces in these black districts, and we've been looking at it. And every time I look at it, fraud case after fraud case after fraud case after fraud case. In fact, let me see if I could pull up something I posted. What was it, yesterday, matter of fact. Let me see if I can pull this up on the screen for you. This just came up. I wasn't even looking for it. It just kind of came up on my timeline. I was like, oh, snap. I said, it just never ends. Let's see here. It is right here. Hold on for a second. Let me get it right here. Here we go. Here we go. Let me bring it up here on the screen for you. Right here. This just happened. All right. So this is in North Carolina, Durham, North Carolina. Court documents allege that she knowingly embezzled more than $74,000 for personal care and entertainment. Stokes, that's her last name, allegedly wrote checks to herself to cash and withdrew cash from a bank branch and ATM with the agency's debit card. The SBI said that it was asked by the Durham County District Attorney's Office to investigate the potential fraud involving this PAC, Political Action Committee, in 2025, and it stemmed from allegations over concerns about the handling of PAC funds in 2023 and 2024. Her organization was a political action committee that worked with Democrats, and then I have the link there. If you continue to read the story, there was actually one guy that used to work in that organization. Again, this is a Democratic based organization. Okay, they raise up funds as an outside organization and they funnel it to the Democrat Party. All right, and how are they getting that money? They're getting that money from black folks. And so you had somebody that worked with her. If you read the article, he saw what was going on, and he also saw how internally how they handled it, and it made him so upset he left. Okay, so anyway, let's move on. Story 2. Here's another one. That's the first woman here that we're talking about here. Here's the second one here. A California woman is expected to plead guilty after federal prosecutors accused her of paying homeless people to register to vote and to sign political petitions in Los Angeles. And her name is Brenda Lee. They have her on video, y'all. I actually saw the video. You can watch it, just go online, do a search for it. They got her on video. She's literally giving them cash, for their votes and telling them what to write and telling them what to vote. But these Negroes want to tell you, oh my God, they're taking away your rights. Oh my God, they're defrauding the black vote. When I had pages and pages and pages just in the last few years of black officials, many of them are elected by the public, the black public, to represent them in these black districts. And time after time after time, they are getting arrested for frauding them, defrauding these black folks. But there's not a peep, not a mumbling word. Now, all of a sudden, the Republicans come in and say, we're going to redraw the maps. Now, all of a sudden, oh, my God, we got to get together. We got to turn into Voltron. It's too late. It's too late. Someone brought up a very interesting point, and I said, man, that's so true. It's interesting that these, because clearly there was an APP that went out because everybody, I mean, I even saw Bossip. I remember that page. I don't even know the last time I've been to Bossip. They even posted something saying the NAACP is standing up against the SEC and telling black athletes don't go to these schools, right? But someone brought up a very interesting point. It says, interesting that groups like the Congressional Black Caucus, the NAACP, had no problem up to this point in saying that we got to stand shoulder to shoulder with our brown brothers and sisters. I don't have amnesia, and I'm sure many of you don't. But they have, up until this point, have been very on code that we have to stand shoulder to shoulder with our brown brothers and sisters. My question for the CBC, the Congressional Black Caucus, the NAACP, the Boule class, the 92%, and the gay men, black gay men, who are all pushing all of this. My question to you is this. Why is it that you didn't put out a similar call to the brown brothers and sisters? Are you asking them to compromise their education? To compromise their opportunities? Are you asking them? Or is it now all of a sudden we all black now? How about the illegal immigrants that you have been pushing for to stack into your district so you can stay in power? And you constantly said to black Americans over and over again that these illegals are us, that we are just like them and they are just like us. You have said this over and over again, and as many times as black Americans have said, no, there is a distinction between the two groups. You have basically told black Americans to shut up on that topic. But now all of a sudden, I don't see you reaching out to the Nigerians. I don't see you reaching out to people from South America. I don't see you reaching out to the people in Haiti and asking them to do anything. Now, all of a sudden, you're asking black Americans to sit in the back of the bus again. Ain't that something? They ain't asking them to do it. And let me show you this, which was really something here. And it just kind of brings the point home even more. Let me see where I could find it here. Just to show you just how out of touch these people are. I told you these people are so out of touch and they get in their wake-up call. Let me show you this here and put this on the screen here. Now, I don't know this dude, D. Orlando Ledbetter. I don't know him. He just came on my timeline today. I don't know him at all. But I want you to take a look at this. I want you to take a look at this because this is what they're going. This is the messaging that they're all putting out. Boycotting the SEC, others, the great Terrence Harrison. Okay, he goes down and he says, black student athletes should boycott the SEC and other schools. Now, I want you to take a look at this map here. Now, clearly they have left out the SEC, right? But what else did they leave out? HBCUs. Did I not tell you that? They left out HBCUs. So they're telling these black athletes we are so mad that we are losing our positions, our do-nothing positions, that we're even trying to steer you away from HBCUs and make sure you go to these other white universities. This is the messaging that they're putting out. Don't blame me. I'm looking at you. Well, no. We're not saying that. We're not saying that. Let me tell you something. Because see, I'm sitting back and you and I, we get a very interesting front row seat in watching how all of this is going to play out. I'm going to tell you, because they're getting cooked online, number one, with all of this. They're getting cooked. I'm going to tell you that, number one. But let me tell you this. Black, I would say athletes, family, black sports families, I'll just say that. And I'm talking like diehard sports families. And when I mean sports families, I'm talking like you have a child maybe in junior varsity or even younger than that is showing a whole lot of potential. And back in the day, it was, hopefully they get noticed by the right people and all that stuff or whatever. And then, sometimes they make it through. But this is 2026. I'm going to show you just how out of touch these Negroes, these ashy Negroes are. Because these sports families today, they are very serious. It is about business. It's about business for them. I could show you leagues right now for like Little League that feature mostly black kids. I'm talking football, obviously. It's football, but also basketball too. But let's just stick with football for a second. Where parents are putting in they are finding money to make sure that these kids get all of their shine. They're investing money in photography. They're investing money in whatever equipment that they need and all of that stuff. They're investing a whole lot of time and money into these elite type leagues. You even have investment groups that are looking at these elite type leagues, and they're putting money into these leagues. I wish I had bookmarked something I was going to show y'all one day, just how serious it is. But, white parents do this stuff, but black parents, it's a whole nother level. It's a whole nother level. And when you start getting into junior varsity and then high school level, and if your child is getting a lot of notice all over the country from different schools and all of that, it is a business. It's a business. This is how much this stuff has changed. And we've talked about some time ago how in many cases you have parents who will intentionally hold their children back a couple of years just so that they can get noticed by recruiters. I mean, when I tell you, it's a very serious enterprise now. This ain't the 70s or even the 80s. It's a whole nother level right now of these sports families. They are very serious. And so let's not even get into if it's just a single mom. She's putting in work. She is putting in work. Okay. And so the reason why these families are doing this is because they want to set Junior up. And this is the part where I don't like, but it is what it is. I'm just telling you. They are setting these kids up so that they can carry the whole family economically. Okay? That's what's happening, and it's been happening. That's why they're investing so much into these kids. I'm talking about I'm just saying black families. White families do it too, but I'm saying black families, if you got a star standout player, honey, they finding money. And they're going to do everything they can to make sure that Junior or, little miss, they shine as much as they can, because the ultimate plan is that once that NIL money comes in, guess what? It's going to help, it's going to uplift all of these boats. I'm just telling you. I'm telling you what I know and what I've seen. That's how it is now. So if you think for one moment that these parents, and I'm just saying black parents, you think for one moment just on that alone, I got more to add to that. They heard from the NAACP telling them that they got to keep hope alive and don't go to that school. Instead, you got to go up to Washington State. But Washington State ain't offering nothing. Do you think they're going to pivot and say, you know what? NAACP told us that we need to. No. They're going for the bag. They're going for the biggest bag because that is what they have been trained to do all the way when they were youngins. They've been trained to do that. And you know, black folks, we're going after the biggest bag, honey. We're going after the biggest bag. I don't care. The parents could have voted for Obama, Biden, Kamala. They could have voted for, and all they vote for all their life is Democrat. That could be the absolute case. But I stopped by to tell you that when it comes to the bag, all of that goes out of the window. I know my folks. All of that goes out the window. That ain't happening. Now, let's take it up another level. Let's go up a little bit higher with this. Now, once these kids, these student athletes, they reach a certain age, they get a representation. They need to get an agent, right? You need someone that's going to handle your PR, your agent, and all of that. What do these people deserve? What is the purpose of their job? What's the main purpose of their job? Of course, is to advertise this athlete. But they got one that's even more basic than that. It's to get the highest contract. It's to get the most money. Now, let me ask you something. If you think that these sports agents are going to pump the brakes and say, you know what, we shall over. They're going to be crossing their arms and say, you know what, this school is offering you a boatload of money and all of these different perks and all of that. But this school down here, they're not offering you as much, but they're not the SEC. Do you think that these agents are going to pivot these students to these non-SEC? It's not happening. It's not happening. I mean, there's so many layers of ignorance here and people that are so out of touch with reality on this. I mean, it's just crazy to me to sit back and to listen to this nonsense and to watch this, because they're going to find, and they are finding out the hard way. They literally are flooding the zone on social media. These people are putting out a lot of money to put this out, to try to get it into the minds of these young people. Please don't go to the SEC. Don't go to the SEC. You told Harpo to beat me. You're daggone right I told Harpo to beat you. In fact, I told Harpo to hold your behind because I'm coming with my stick. Because we tired of y'all saying the same stuff over and over again, and we see right through it. They're taking away your rights. They're taking away our rights, and then with every post, they got to go back. Remember this? They shooting us with water hoses. You remember that? Here's another one with a dog biting your ancestors, and you remember all these pictures? And they're like, I'm getting all kinds of stuff, old black and white images of black folks being lynched and all of this stuff. Do you really think that these young black folks are going to look at that and be like, oh, the horror, oh my God, you know what? You're right, we're going to protest. They're not doing that. They're not doing that. And so they're going to find out the hard way. Plain and simple. These groups are going to find out the hard way. And what I predict is once preseason starts, it's going to be so whittled down. They're going to drag out old Al Sharpton and his old whittled old bones. And then a few other people, and they're going to be standing outside the stadium and with their little podium and saying what they're going to say. Meanwhile, you're going to have tens of thousands of people just walking past them saying, yeah, whatever. It's just not. Like I said, again, I mean, I have my criticisms about, the whole student athlete thing just in general, because I see, the impact it is having on education and all that kind of stuff. But I do agree that our students should be getting paid. I do agree with that, because if these schools are going to be making this kind of money off of these students, then these students should be getting paid. It makes sense to me. I don't see why not. You know what I'm saying? But the solution that the boycott stuff, I mean, how many times have we heard boycott? I mean, in the last few years, it's like now it's like it doesn't even, it has no power. It literally has no power now. People done played out even the word boycott. Every time I hear word boycott, I'm just like, yeah, whatever. That'll last about a few seconds. But anyway, that's that, you know, and I saw that, and that's still going on, and they're going to continue to do that. Well, anyway, let's move on to the next thing here. Let me see if I can pull this up. Trump. Well, Trump is being Trump, and he's doing exactly what he does. Let me see if I can pull this up here. Well, Trump, he found some money. He found some money to take care of his people that he has called his allies. Let me see if I can find this video here for you. Oh, here it is, right here. Let's see. Let's pull this up here. I have to rewind it for you, but let's pull this up here. Let's take a listen to this video here. And this
paid for in taxpayer money, $1.8 billion, what the president calls an anti-weaponization fund to compensate Trump allies, including the rioters on January 6th. Here's Rachel Scott.
Tonight, the Justice Department announcing a new so-called anti-weaponization fund, $1.8 billion in taxpayer money to be given away to allies of President Trump who claim they were unfairly treated by the Biden DOJ. Among those who could see payouts, the 1,600 people charged in connection with the riot at the Capitol on January 6th. President Trump told his supporters to march to the Capitol.
We're going to walk down to the Capitol because you'll never take back our country with weakness.
Today, the president defending the new fund.
This is reimbursing people that were horribly treated, horribly treated. It's anti-weaponization. They've been weaponized. They've been, in some cases, imprisoned wrongly.
The fund is part of a legal settlement between President Trump and his own administration. The president agreeing to drop his $10 billion lawsuit against the IRS over the leak of some of his tax returns several years ago. He's also dropping $230 million in claims against the Justice Department for investigations they launched against him. President Trump has acknowledged the unprecedented circumstances, a president suing his own administration, which he controls. Democrats tonight calling it a MAGA slush fund.
Trump pardoned violent insurrectionists who assaulted your Capitol to overturn your votes. And now he wants to give them your hard-earned tax dollars as a reward. Can you believe that?
And again, David, we're talking about nearly $1.8 billion of taxpayer money. This fund will expire a few weeks before the president leaves office, David.
Rachel Scott with us. Thank you, Rach.
Well, it's the government being the government. The government's being the government. You got Republicans that do this stuff. You got Democrats that do this stuff all the time. And, you know, and so, yeah, it's a hodgepodge of different things. I mean, if you've taken the time to look at this, you know, some of these individuals that went to the, to the White House or whatever, now to the Capitol, and they, you know, marched on it and all that kind of stuff. The reality is that the truth is that there were people who were getting arrested and stuff, and they were not really doing anything, right? They would just happen to be there. What's also true and what came out is that many of those people were part of three-letter organizations like the FBI. They had a lot of people there, the Department of Homeland Security. They had a lot of undercover people there that were actually pushing the riot forward and telling people, hey, come over here. Let's look at this. Let's tear this down and all of that stuff. So the government was all into that too. So in those hearings, that stuff started coming out. But you got all of this other stuff, like what Trump is doing and all this other stuff. And now basically, and what's his name? He's right. I mean, it's kind of like his slush fund, and he's paying off people. Now, if you think that these little people that I just mentioned that got arrested, that probably shouldn't have gotten arrested, if you think he's put aside, they're amassing over $1 billion to help them out, think again, y'all. Most of that money is going towards other people. Nobody's going to really see it. And this is just how the world works. The Doge thing, okay, yay, they're finally getting down and finding out where all this money is. Then you got Trump doing this. It's the same thing. The round and round we go. Where it stops, it will never stop. But it happens on both sides. And I saw a few comments on some black folks were saying, so see, same talking point. Same talking point. See, they can find money for that, but they can't find money for reparations. You're right. They're not going to find it because it ain't there. It's not there. I don't understand how many ways I could tell you this. It is not there. What do you mean it's not there? You just saw they found over $1 billion again. Right. Because it's their money. They print it. They give it value. They control it. This system, the architects of this system, they left your black ass out of it. I don't understand how many other ways I could tell you. Everybody has a position. Your position is, no, you're not getting reparations. You could call me be negative Negro or whatever. You could call me whatever you want. But what I am telling you is that this system was not written, did not write a part for you to live happily ever after getting checks that are untaxed and everybody getting $1 billion. It ain't written like that. They ain't going to do that, and they never will do that. Not this system. It will not. And so people got to get out of this fantasy land thinking that if we just get an ADOS person in office or we get an FBA person up there, they're going to change everything. No, they're not. Because how many times have we been around this circle over and over again? It's the same story over and over again. Because the system is corrupt. If the system is corrupt, that means the participants in the system, they're also corrupt. But yet you keep expecting a different result. That's called insanity. Anyway, it's just, I see this stuff keep popping up, and it's just, okay, well, we'll just have to sit back and just watch this play out, and hopefully people will figure it out one day, but, probably won't. And that's it. So anyway, let me move on here. Let me see what my collections are. Why my collections ain't showing up here? Let's see. Okay, I got two videos I'm gonna play here, and then we're gonna get into these antidepressants. We're gonna talk about that. I got a few videos I want to show on that, but I got some good positive videos I want to share with you guys here. Let me pull this up here. This first one is a young man who was a former inmate, but he turned his life around, and man, he's really doing some things here. So let me pull this video up here, and let's take a look at this one here. And there we go. We'll look at that.
3 years after enrolling in Dallas College, I graduated from SMU with a degree in economics and public policy.
That is not Chris Young's story. He'll tell you his life is a story of
resilience, resolve, and redemption.
Growing up in Clarksville, Tennessee, with real poverty, without real parenting.
I didn't have a biological father. I've never met him, never even seen a picture of him. And my mother suffered from extreme crack cocaine addiction.
As a teenager, Chris began selling the same drugs that held his family hostage.
I didn't sell drugs because I thought it was cool. I sold drugs because I thought it was the thing I needed to do to escape poverty.
When he was arrested at age 22, it was his third time busted for drugs. Because of federal 3 strikes and you're out laws, Young knew his future was fixed.
I was sentenced to 2 life without parole sentences.
Federal Judge Kevin Sharp, bound by sentencing guidelines to send Chris Young away, was also bothered to put Chris away forever.
I didn't know that at the time, though. So I had to go in prison and start my prison bid just knowing that I had 2 life sentences and that I had to figure out a way to get out. And one day, I happened to get the news that Judge Sharp was resigning in protest of not only mandatory minimums, but specifically to help me get released.
That story began a chain of events that included news coverage.
Taylor Dovin, a journalist, chose to share the article with Brittany and asked Brittany, if possible, could she help me?
Dallas attorney Brittany K. Barnett, who has worked to secure new freedoms for more than 70 people.
To have former federal judge Kevin Sharp stepped down and link arms with me in this fight for Chris's life, literally, was beyond amazing.
The story got the attention as well of Kim Kardashian, who also lobbied for Chris Young. President Trump, on the last day of his first term, granted clemency to Chris Young.
How'd you feel?
Ecstatic, surreal, exhilarating. I was speechless.
That was 2021. From prison in Beaumont to enrollment at Dallas College and then on to SMU. Now graduating, and with a memoir to be published in August, he hopes his life speaks volumes.
I will do well by doing good. Like Benjamin Franklin said, I started a consulting firm where we will help debunk the fallacy of scarcity. I believe if the world embraced the abundance mentality, we will progress further technologically and socially. 3 years after.
Good for him. Good for him. Congratulations. That's the kind of stuff we need to hear. And yes, those stories happen quite a bit out here. We just don't hear enough about them. But good job, man. So glad to hear that. Here's another story here. This is a young man that went before a black man who went before a black judge. And I want you to take a look at this interaction here. So it's very, very touching. And like I said, right after that, we're going to dive into our two main topics. OK, so let's go ahead and get to this.
Mr. Jackson, if I'm reading this correctly, you got a ticket the same day. Did you get a ticket while you were en route to the hospital?
Yes, sir.
That's why you were driving at a high rate of speed and driving through stop signs?
Yes, sir.
To get to your sister who was involved in an accident?
That's correct.
What's the condition of your sister?
She's okay now.
She's okay?
Yes.
She wasn't hurt?
She was injured through the accident, but she's still.
How badly was she injured?
I believe she had a broken femur, I believe it was, and a broken arm as well.
So you requested the court date rather than just paying the ticket. Why did you request the court date?
Because I have every intention of paying the fine, of course, but
okay.
I would need a little bit of time because.
So you want the court to set you up on a payment plan?
Yes, sir.
That's why you're here?
Yes, sir.
Okay, why can't you just pay the ticket outright? It'd be like, because what happens is, from my previous experience, people want payment plans and then they forget, and then they get themselves caught up in a jam, and then it's the collections, and that's a whole nother mess. So if you're going to pay the $350, I would recommend you pay it just out front. Is there a reason why you can't do that?
Well, I don't like to use this as an excuse, but I used to be in the.
You used to be what? I'm sorry.
On duty, and I served 5 years in Afghanistan.
On duty where?
In the Marines.
Oh, Semper Fi.
Yes, sir.
How long were you in the Corps?
For 5 years.
You were in the Corps for 5 years? Just curious. You saw combat over there?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm sorry about that. How long have you been stateside?
For about a year now.
For about a year? Let me ask you, how's the job situation going?
Not great, especially since I've been diagnosed with PTSD, unfortunately. So any over stimulus will sometimes set me off in a negative way. So it's been kind of hard to have a job.
Since you've been stateside, have you had a job?
I've had jobs here and there.
Doing what?
I've done car washing, a little bit odd things I could do.
Where do you live?
Luckily, my friend of mine let me stay at this place for a while.
You're sleeping on a friend's couch, is that what you're trying to say?
Yes, sir.
For all intents and purposes, you're homeless. Do you have a job right now?
No, but I'll get one to pay.
When was the last time you had a job?
3 months ago, the car washing.
3 months ago. Okay, let me ask you this question. How much can you pay right now for this $350 fine?
I have.
Are you reaching inside your wallet?
I have $30. Maybe I can pay right now.
Do you have a bank account?
No, sir.
So you have no checking account, no savings account. The only money that you have on you, the only money that you have as far as your net worth is the $30 that's inside your wallet? That's what you're trying to tell me?
Yeah, so if I do like 10 payments of $30, I could definitely do that, I'm sure. I could start today if you need me to.
But you haven't had a job in a while and you're homeless.
I'll figure it out somehow.
You know what I can never understand? It's weird to me that we live in a country where people volunteer to join our military, but then when they get out, they're homeless, they can't find employment. You would think that a person who decides that, you know what, I want to serve my country would have the opportunity to find employment when they get out. You would think they would have the opportunity to find housing, but that's not the case. I think the number is somewhere between 10 and 15%, maybe even higher, of the people that we have on our streets are homeless veterans. Did you know that?
Yes, I did, sir.
And you said that you served in combat.
Yes, sir.
So I'm assuming you've seen some things that you wish you hadn't seen.
Yes, sir.
See, I'm still a police officer here in Mango Park, and I've seen some things, urban combat, for lack of a better word, but I don't think it pales in comparison to what you've gone through. And now here you are in a situation where your sister, you said your sister didn't have insurance, or did I not hear that?
I don't think we talked about it, but no, she didn't have insurance, no.
Now we have another situation where you have to come and pay this incredibly high bill. So, and that's put on the back of a veteran who can't find a job and is homeless. And I understand there are veterans out there who have jobs and they can say whatever, but I'm sorry, I just feel that's a terrible disservice. You decided that you would take that chance. And you didn't come home in a box with a flag on it, but you did come home to a situation where you can't find a job and you can't find a home. As a nation, we should be embarrassed about that. We really should. We should really be embarrassed. So, this is what I'm going to do for you. You're going to pay that fine, okay? I'm not letting you off the hook. You're going to pay the fine.
Absolutely.
But I'm going to give you a break. I'm going to give you a deduction on the fine amount. So, how about we pay $10 to the courts, and if need be, the other $20 if you want, you can go next door and get yourself something to eat.
I'm confused. What does that mean?
Where's the confusion? You're paying the fine, are you not? You're paying the price of what you just did. You're paying the cost. You already paid a price. You went overseas, you fought, you got PTSD. You already paid the price. This, your action is inexcusable. You shouldn't do that. Don't ever do this again. But I understand you're trying to rescue your sister who is in a medical situation. It could have been life or death. You didn't know that. You paid a price a long time ago. You paid a price when you decided you wanted to sign on the line, and you're here. Because guess what? If you would have died overseas, who would have been there for your sister? Is your mom still living? Who would be there to take care of your mom? You understand where I'm coming from?
Thank you. Thank you very much, sir.
Court's adjourned.
Will it be all right if I approach the bench? I'd like to thank you properly, if that's okay.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, you want to approach the bench? Sure. You can come up. Yes, sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Mr. Jackson?
That's awesome, isn't it? That's awesome. That's what justice looks like. That's what justice looks like. Just straight up. You know, you're using your position and you're putting out justice. You know what I mean? And so finding little stories like that, we try to highlight that as much as we can. And I've came across that one. That was a pretty good one. That was a pretty good one. So, but anyway, yeah, so what we're going to do, let's take a quick break here. Quick break, and then we're going to get into, I promise you, we're going to be moving like this, y'all. Okay, because we got two topics I'm going to hit there, but I wanted to hit that, the general news stuff, get that out of the way, and then and then we're going to go ahead and get into these very important topics here. Remember, make sure you guys check out sambatree.com. The website again is sambatree.com. We're running that special promo going on right now. All right, 30-second break.
From the leaf to the bottle, yeah, we slow it down. No rush in the process, we let love come around. Yeah. Sun on the flavor, lime in the blend. Once you taste something real, you don't play pretend. Ain't no shortcuts, ain't no disguise. You can see it in the color, taste it when you try. Grown folks sip, yeah, it hit just right. Daytime cooler, warm late night. If you know, then you know what I mean. When it's brewed real slow, keep it clean. Let me tell you what it is, my friend. Brewed, not powdered. Fresh, not pretend. Samba Tree, sour soft. You wanna sip it again and again. Brewed, not powdered. Fresh, not pretend. Samba Tree, sour soft. You wanna sip it again and again. Popped again, again. Cap, hear the sound, let it breathe. Pour it slow.
All right, we're back. Thank you so much for tuning in to our broadcast here. Really appreciate you guys being in there. And yeah, let's go ahead and get back into it, you guys. Okay, so this week, one of the things that have been coming up on my timeline on social media is this thing called SSRI. And I'll tell you what that means in a little bit, but basically it's a classification of antidepressants and all of that. And we're talking about it now, but I want to, just like when this last story that we just heard of this young man who was dealing with PTSD, which is another mental health issue. And believe it or not, you got people who suffer from PTSD and they didn't go to war. They weren't in the military. They are suffering from it, from the stuff that they dealing with right here. You know what I'm saying? And that's true. And but in this, what we're getting ready to get into, we're dealing with another type of mental health crisis that's going on right now. And I'm gonna get into it in a moment. But first, and it's tied into this story, this little clip that I'm going to show you. What was it? Last week, I think I showed you I decided not to show you because she was just a little too, she's a little too nasty. I mean, and this is Charlie Theron, and she was just talking about, her sexual escapades, that she's still able to, have sex with young men and all of this other stuff. Meanwhile, she's creating these a little black Frankenstein in her house, of a little boy that she adopted and transformed him into a woman, and so she, these are little pet projects, and she has them all walking around with dresses on and all that kind of stuff. And then recently, I guess it was part of a tour to promote her latest movie, latest project or whatever. She said she told her kids that they're not going to get any special privileges from her. So she did her job to damage this young man for life, his sexuality and the whole nine. But meanwhile, she's on these podcasts talking about how she's free. She can do whatever she wants. She can have sex with whomever she wants and all this other stuff, right? But so we got somebody else who's doing the same thing, and this is Halle Berry, and I'm gonna play hers because it's what I saw in that was, I said, this is symbolic of what we see in the black feminist movement. Is ultimately they want to take place of the white woman. And when I see, and I say it's ironic to me that here you got Charlie Theron that's been going around on these podcasts saying all this stuff and how she's so sexually free and all this other stuff. And then right on the heels, now you got, what's her name, Halle Berry coming out, and she's going to say something pretty along those lines there. The clip is about a minute long, and if you got small kids, they probably don't want to hear this. It ain't that bad, but I do want you to hear it, and we're going to take note of a few things, and I'm going to show you how this bridges into our conversation this evening, first part of our conversation. So let me go ahead and play this. Hopefully you guys see that on your screen, and here we go. Halle Berry, she is on a podcast. And she's having this conversation. Take a listen.
Yeah, in our youth, sometimes I know everybody in here I know if you don't say this is true, you're lying. Everybody has faked it because you just want it to be done. Sometimes you just want the pounding to stop. So you just say, okay, I'm good too. And then you go find your vibrator in the bathroom and you handle it yourself.
Exactly. Oh my God.
We've
so
all
true. No more guys pounding away you like a jackhammer once you hit this age. You're like, no more jackhammer sex.
No more.
Never
but
felt
we
good.
were afraid to say, we had to get there so that he felt good about bringing us to orgasm, right? So we had to say that we did it so that he would feel good about himself. Because what is that doing?
Right.
That's putting his needs before our own.
Yeah.
And now I don't do that anymore.
No.
I'm like, no, I come first like you come first to you.
Yeah.
We both deserve to have this be a mutually enjoyable experience. So we both can roll over and go to sleep because we feel good. Not one snoring and one looking at us.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay. So this is Halle Berry, talking about her, basically saying that, these men, they just really can't satisfy us as, they're just not good at it. They're not good at satisfying us. And it made me think about, a couple of things. One, I mean, someone that's in the industry that she's in right now, I'm sure she's had to do some things to get to where she is today. And I'm not talking about just training as far as like acting school, but I'm talking about the other stuff. So, if she's had I'm sure she's had a lot of action, if you know what I mean. I'm trying to be nice, but after a while, I could see how that can get old to you. I do see that. Okay. But neither here or there about that. But but it made me think about, because she's not the only one. There are many other people that I'm hearing saying the same thing. It's like, these men, they just can't satisfy us like we used to. It's just no, we got to do our own thing and all of that. We don't really need a man, that kind of thing, right? And it reminded me of something that I did a series on our other YouTube page. I haven't posted on in a while, I know. It's called Long Form History, where we actually get into, just as the name implies, we really dive in deep in certain topics and that I don't really talk about here, but we expand on certain topics there on that page. It's called Long Form History. But anyway, we did a series on circumcision. Okay. And this is all tied into, that's why I say, just follow me. We talked about circumcision, and we talked about the impact of circumcision during intercourse. There was a study that was done, and for those that are like, well, I wish you would give the references. This is all in the series. You can go check it out. I give everything. But there was a study that was done. They did a study with women, and they said, which do you prefer? Which ones do you prefer, a man that has been circumcised or a man who has not been circumcised? And overwhelmingly, the women said that they preferred the man who was not circumcised. And in that series, we talked about how, again, we're having an adult conversation here, but the sheath that men are born with over your genital area, your penis, basically. And it's designed, everything that we're born with, it has a specific design. It has a specific purpose. But during the intercourse period, when a man is uncircumcised, that is one of the purposes is to make it easier during intercourse, so that it's not as rough or as harsh, on the woman, right? And so when you remove that layer of skin, what it does is it makes it more uncomfortable for the woman. All right. This is all part of circumcision. The other thing, of course, is we talked about all the thousands upon thousands upon thousands of nerve endings that are attached to that. And when you are introducing these baby boys to that level of trauma at such, right at infancy, the amount of trauma that is being imprinted on their nervous system at that time. We talked about all the lifelong things that a lot of men deal with as a result of that trauma, having that skin cut off of their penis. You know what I mean? But this goes back a while back because, religion has promoted this practice and said that this is something that you're supposed to do because it's about cleanliness, being clean versus the unclean and all this other stuff. But we talked about the people who have really promoted this practice over and over again for centuries and saying that you got to do it and all this other nonsense. But it has a impact not just on the man, but also on the woman, right? And so you give it time, you're going to start seeing how this impacts, it's just going to get worse. So that's layer one of this, of what we're talking about here. But layer two, which we're going to talk about now, do you want to get in? Layer two, do I have it? Sorry, I have it. Well, there we go. All right. Layer two is, because like I said, you got a lot of people who are talking like this, like what Halle Berry is saying. All right. But layer two now, there is a lot of people, as you know, more and more people are getting onto these antidepressants. And because we lived in a very depressed society. And let me get to my notes here. And let me see where to go. No. Oh, that was the other thing I wanted to mention. That was the other thing. Let's see, how did I tie that in? Give me just a moment, because I mentioned that. Oh, what was the other thing? I know what I wanted to say, but I'm trying to figure out how did that tie in. I'll just say it, what I was going to say to you, and then maybe as I'm talking about it, it will come to me. Okay, but here's what I was going to say. I have been thinking, this kind of hooks into another thing that I have been thinking about, and we're going to get into this pharmaceutical stuff here, because everything I'm saying to you, it is all tied together. But I was thinking about, I said, it's very strange, I still go through this time where I'm like reflecting on my days in Christendom and all of that stuff. And one of the things that came to my mind was, I said, wow, I used to sing love songs to a man. I used to sing love songs to a man named Jesus I never met. I used to sing love songs to him. Jesus, I am so in love with you, and there's other songs. I keep falling in love with him over and over and over and over again. I keep falling in love with him over and over and over and over again. It gets sweeter and sweeter as the days go by. Oh, my love between my Lord and I keep falling in love with him over and over and over and over again. Think about this for a second. I am a man singing like that, not to my wife, but about a man. See, when we were in the church world, that seemed normal, didn't it? But it's now that I'm out of it, I'm like, oh my God, what was I doing? Well, it gets even deeper. You know how we talked about how the church, and I had this thought, I said, the church, I truly believe, well, it is. I mean, and if you go, we did a whole entire series on this. It's called Breaking the Chains. Go to sambatree.com. Go into Samba Tree University. If you want to check it out, it's there. Okay. But we have a workbook, the whole everything. I give you notes, all kinds of stuff. But we discuss all that here. But one of the largest influences in Christianity came from a practice out of Rome or Greece. It was they used to worship a god by the name of, oh man, I'm going blank now. I've been talking about this dude for years, and I just, oh man, how did I just go blank like that? Dionysus. I haven't talked about Dionysus in a while, but yeah, Dionysus. The Dionysus cult, we talked about that in detail. Now, in the Dionysus cult, one of the things it centered on was women. They used to have temples and all that stuff, right? When you look at ancient Greece and ancient Roman religious practices or whatever, one of the things they used to have, they had these massive temples, and they used to have the women that were mainly in these temples. The women were seen as a conduit to access the gods. Okay, there's many levels to that. You know, why the woman was seen as the one having the access to God, to the higher power. It was through her private parts, basically. And so that's why a lot of these women were seen as they would be temple prostitutes. That's why you would have that there. But anyway, the cult of Dionysus, among other things, one of the practices that came out of that, when you talk about eat the flesh and drink the blood, well, that didn't come from your Bible. That came from the cult of Dionysus, where they used to physically do that, eat flesh and drink blood. And they used to also rehearse doing that. That's where we get the communion from. Okay. Again, your Bible got that from the cult of Dionysus. But one of the things that they used to, okay, I remember now. I remember why I wanted to share this with you. One of the things that they used to do in the cult of Dionysus is that they used to do this, and I'm going to read to you the list of rituals, okay, that they used to do. Wild dancing, repetitive drumming and flutes, frenzied emotional release, altered states of consciousness, loss of inhibition. I could never say that. Let's see, screaming, crying, laughing. And then it says animal symbolism, erotic energy, group intoxication. Basically, one of the things that the cult of Dionysus used to do is they used to mimic having an orgasm. They used to pretend to do it. That was a way that they would worship their god, is that they would pretend that they would act out having an orgasm. They would go through all the screaming, the crying, the shaking, and all of that stuff. Well, let's hit the fast forward button. What do you see in the church today? What do you see in the church today? You see mostly women. We're talking the black church, right? Doing praise and worship. What do you see? You see people screaming and hollering, right? Crying, shaking, and all of that stuff. That is directly tied to what came out of the early pre-Christianity, which was the worship of the cult of Dionysus, where they would mimic. You're literally mimicking. Even today, when you think of these, when you see people out there, they going all that, you are literally you are literally mimicking having an orgasm. I know that's hard for some of you to kind of wrap your head around that, but that's where it comes from. That's where it comes from, is the pretending that you are being satisfied by this person that you can't see. And we literally went through this. I remember talking about this, the build up. When you look at praise and worship, how the praise and worship services are set up, it starts off fast, and then it moves you to bring you in, then it moves you slow, and then it takes you, and I said, this is the whole progression of a sexual encounter. So when you see praise and worship and seeing all that, now that's women doing that. But you also got men, of course, that are engaged in this behavior too, right? Crying and screaming. So the men are doing the same thing. You are reenacting having an orgasm with a man. That's what you're doing. That's where it comes from. And you wonder why there's so many little boys that are getting molested in these churches. Because like I said again, a tree will never abandon its roots. It doesn't matter who's doing it. At the end of the day, it's always going to come up over and over and over and over and over again. And so when Halle Berry said that, it made me think about that, just the whole faking thing and all of that, and how that's a whole thing. And a lot of women are being told, yeah, you know, you don't need a man. Basically, you could satisfy yourself and all of that. And then it made me think of how the church, you know, going back into the cult of Dionysus and all of that, it just made me think about that as well, and how that is tied in, you know. Well, it goes even further. Now, when we're talking about these pharmaceuticals, you have these antidepressants that are out here now. And these antidepressants, an SSRI means selective serotonin reuptake inhibitor. Okay. And so basically what it does, just in a very nutshell, is basically when your body is detecting I'm like literally explaining it in the most simplest of terms that I can, because I want to make sure people understand. Basically, just as the name implies, it's an antidepressant. Okay, when you hear antidepressant, it basically is a drug that artificially will relax your brain when you feel this angst, or you start feeling yourself getting worked up or whatever, you know, all of that stuff. And so these drugs are designed to do things in your brain to basically calm you down. Okay. And so some of the common ones are Prozac, Zoloft, Lexapro, Paxil, Celexa, and Luvox. Okay. Those are some of the common ones. And so it's something that is recommended to a lot of people who, if you go into, you know, see a psychiatrist or something like that, and you mention certain key words, they are more than likely going to recommend one of those drugs that I just mentioned to you. Well, the unfortunate thing is these drugs have a whole list of bad side effects, This is why we're strong advocates of natural medicine, because natural medicine, it, like, you know, herbs and plants and things like that, they do have their own side effects, but not like this. I mean, it's nausea, vomiting, diarrhea, constipation, indigestion, stomach pain, dizziness, fatigue, weakness, insomnia. I mean, it goes on. Then there's like the possible effects of mood and mental side effects, increased anxiety, nervousness, agitation, irritability, anger, feeling emotionally numb. And we're going to talk about that, vivid dreams. I mean, it just goes on and on. I remember, and it's antidepressant I wasn't taking, but it was Benadryl, you know, when we first moved to Atlanta, and how it was, oh my God. I mean, the pollen was just really bothering me. It was really bad. And so I was taking Benadryl, and I used to hallucinate like it couldn't believe, and it scared me. And so I said, I don't know what I got to do, but I'm not taking this stuff anymore. And it just, so when I think about even taking pharmaceutical stuff, it scares me, because I know how sensitive I am to this stuff. So I can only imagine what this stuff does. Well, we don't have to imagine, but what I'm going to do is, there's some videos that I want to play for you of people who have taken this stuff, and the impact it's had on their lives. So let me pull a couple of these videos up, because I do want you to hear for yourself here. Give me just a moment here. Let me find that for you. And let's see. I will start with this one. And it's just a few videos here, but I want you to hear it. And let's go with this one.
But it's not just that. And here is basically you're castrating people. You're essentially castrating people, but it's worse than that. Because how could anything be worse than that? Because along with the sexual dysfunction, and this is where the condition is misunderstood. People think it's just a sexual problem, which is already horrific as is. It causes cognitive damage as well. People will along with that, they'll have severe difficulty concentrating, focusing, paying attention, and there's also severe emotional blunting. And so people will talk about being completely dissociated as well. from their emotions. Like if you were to hug a child, your child or your wife, you just don't feel anything warm. If you were to hear a favorite song from your childhood that, used to make like the back of your neck kind of prickle from nostalgia, all of that gets like nuked and taken out. And so you have people who are essentially lobotomized with cognitive impairment who also have severe sexual dysfunction.
So you're basically destroying someone's soul. I mean, the things that make you distinctly human.
Yeah.
Your love, your emotional response, your sexual response, which is very deep. It's not just I'm horny today. It's like, it's your life force. It's your procreative force. It's what keeps the species alive. That's gone.
It's wiped out, and people become highly suicidal because when you don't feel anything, you don't feel any connection to life, it's like there's nothing to live for anymore. And so the suicide rate in this population is through the roof. But it's not just that. And here is
basically you're castrating people.
You're essentially castrating people, but it's worse than that.
All right, so that's one video here. I want you to take a listen to this one here.
Yeah, so I'm living with a condition called post-SSRI sexual dysfunction. Sexual dysfunction is one of the most common and reliable side effects of SSRIs. In fact, 50 to 70% of all patients taking these will have sexual side effects. What patients are not warned about is that these side effects can be permanent long after you stop the last drug dose. And PSSD is not just low libido, it is a full nervous system injury in which you lose total sexual function neurologically through essentially nervous system damage. So the hallmark symptom of PSSD is genital numbness. Yes, like complete loss of sensation in your genitals. For me, I clearly hate to talk about this, but my clitoris is completely numb as if it's the back of my elbow. I have no sensation internally. I'm 23 years old. Sufferers also lose the ability to orgasm permanently, like for the rest of their lives, and their libido entirely, which for me and what a lot of other people experience is like a sudden onset, like chemical asexuality that just never goes away. And in my opinion, I don't think it's sensational to say that this is a form of chemical castration, that it is permanent. But beyond that, PSSD is not just a loss of sexual function, but a loss for some people of emotional function as well. That has been the case for me. Before this, I was a super emotional, empathetic, loving, caring, like Sylvia Plath reading and resonating girl. And the day I woke up with this injury, I quite literally felt my soul leave my body. Like, I'm so serious. It was the most unbelievable, inorganic thing I've ever experienced. And it's a common symptom of people who have this condition. To this day, it's been years for me. I'm 23 now. I can't feel love from my own mother, which is the hardest thing on earth. I can't feel connection or love for my friends, or even pleasure in music, which was the bane of my existence. I was a songwriter since I was a child. It was my outlet. And it's been completely neurologically severed from these medications. And I just like to say there's a reason that, every song on the radio, every movie on your television, every piece of art since the beginning of humanity centers on sex and love. And not just romantic love, but platonic, familial love. And that is because these are the most central, intoxicating, worthwhile, and fulfilling parts of the human experience. These aren't luxuries. And to remove someone's ability to participate, not just physically through sex, which is completely horrific on its own, but to remove someone's ability to emotionally connect with another human being is a crime against humanity. And I say crime against humanity because there is evidence that Eli Lilly, who created the first SSRI, Prozac, knew their drugs could cause permanent sexual dysfunction and emotional numbness in children especially. And they withheld this from the public because they knew it would be a threat to the bottom line. I mean, I hope I'm not the only one who believes that there's nothing more criminal or dystopian to withhold from patients and parents of patients that your medication can permanently chemically castrate and emotionally numb its user for the rest of their life. PSSD is not on the drug label. It's not even in the fine print. I quite literally had no way of knowing that this was possible or that this could happen to me. The FDA actually received a citizen's petition from sufferers in 2018, begging the risk be added to the label, and it was completely ignored. I took Zoloft in 2022. If this correction was made, I would have had full informed consent. I could have chosen an alternative. I would have been spared from the most inorganic, inhumane suffering I could have never imagined. I mean, we think these parts of us are immutable, and I'd argue that they are, but when you introduce a chemical agent so like perverse, these things that are so central are able to be removed, and it's horrific. But what makes PSSD so torturous is that we've been blindsided, betrayed, and maimed by the industry that we were told and instructed to trust, and we trusted fully given we took these medications. And now we've been offered no way back to our lives or humanities.
I'm going to stop there.
I'd like to...
I'm going to stop there. I just want you to hear some of the voices on this. Let me see. Let me play this.
I have a brain injury from antidepressants. At just 7 years old, I was prescribed psychiatric drugs. I was far too young to understand what they were, let alone the lasting impact they would have on my developing brain. It started in the 2nd grade when a teacher noticed I was fidgety, distracted, and not fully keeping up academically. My parents were advised to take me to see a psychiatrist for an ADHD evaluation, and I was quickly diagnosed, labeled, and medicated. They even told me I had a learning disability. Ironically, the drugs later created the very disability they claimed that I had. It began with ADHD stimulants like Adderall and Ritalin, and I still remember how agitated and moody they made me feel. This was completely out of character for me, as I was a happy, sweet, silly kid. Adverse side effects were interpreted as new diagnoses, and more drugs were prescribed to treat the problems that the medications themselves had caused. This spiraled into a prescription cascade of antidepressants, benzodiazepines, mood stabilizers, and antipsychotics, all before my 10th birthday. None of it ever felt right, but I was a child, and I didn't have the words to explain what was happening, and I didn't have the authority to challenge it.
I'm gonna stop there with her because she's saying that kind of, she has her story there as well. But I do want to mention this, and then I have I'll see what other one I could play on this topic here. But as you're listening to this, I want you to keep in mind too, because like I said, these individuals have their stories, but there are, when you think of the foster care system, there are thousands upon thousands upon thousands upon thousands upon thousands of black children that are turned over to the foster care system all the time. And they have, and the pharmaceutical companies have so much access to them, and they're dumping all of these types of drugs on these children all the time. And so I know many of you, I'm sure some of you have seen like these, it's some kind of trend now. They call it teen, I don't know what it is. Basically, it's a bunch of black kids that get together and they show up at a mall or whatever, and they just start fighting, acting stupid and crazy or whatever. And it's like a mob thing. And it's like a trend that's been going on for a minute now. And I couldn't help but to think that, like I said, again, as black folks, yes, we got, just like all other groups have their problems. We have our problems. We have our issues. But there's different levels to it. Like this, to solve these deep issues that we see within what we call the black community. Like I was telling Nicole, I said, it's more than just, we need more fathers in the home. Obviously we do, but what you're hearing now is there is also a chemical element to this as well, where some of these children, at least some of them, are being introduced to these types of drugs at a very young age, and they're being so disconnected chemically from real life. Like a lot of times, it's not just simply you need to tell these kids they need to pick up a book and start reading. A lot of them may not even be there in a place where they can do that because of the amount of chemicals that are being put to them. I saw for myself how schools were so easily, even in my time, they so easily went to pivot black children into these special ed classrooms, and then past my time, then it got even worse. It was like, well, did you ever get him tested for ADHD or whatever? And then, I think we should give him some Ritalin. It's a whole pipeline for that. Right in these public schools where a lot of these black children are being exposed to this at a very young age, and it's the drugs, it's the pharmaceuticals that's being pushed onto them. Okay. And so when you're interacting with people online, you got to keep that in mind. Because we want to assume, this part of our brain, we want to assume that the people that we're interacting with online have got it all together. But the truth of the matter is that you got people that you're interacting with that may be on this stuff. And I'll show you a video in a moment here, but let me see if I can find one more here. Let's see if this woman, what she's saying here. Let me play this one here.
I was on Lexapro for 10 years, and not one doctor asked if I should come off. Let that sink in. So 10 years ago, when I had my daughter, I was prescribed it for postpartum depression. And at the time, I really needed it. But what I didn't know then is that no one's going to come back to question it for me. So 10 years go by. 10 years of feeling flat, disconnected, emotionally dull, and no libido. And I just thought, oh, this is me. I had no idea it was tied to the medication. And I'm not sharing this to bash Lexapro. I'm sharing it because nobody told me, hey, you're allowed to reevaluate, to ask, is this still necessary?
Mm-hmm.
Like, what was originally going on that caused me to need it?
Mm-hmm.
My body's changed. Maybe it's not serving me now and creating more harm than good.
Mm-hmm.
Prescriptions should not be autopilot. Oh, you're fine. You're fine to take it for life. Shouldn't be the end of the conversation like it was for me. What I didn't realize...
And I'll end it there for her on that. And, she brings up a lot of good points. This is why, like I said all the time is, when we see these beautiful pictures of black, young black men and women graduating from these medical schools and all that, we're like, oh, look at all the black medical doctors, the future doctors and all of that. They're gonna be tearing it up and all that. But like I said, the reality is that the overwhelming majority of them are going right into employment of these pharmaceutical companies, where these doctors are basically, these newly minted doctors are basically going to do that. They're autopiloting a lot of these prescriptions to our elders, to our middle-aged people, to our young people, and saying, just keep taking it because that's what you need to do, that kind of thing. And a lot of doctors, they do that because that's what they've been trained to do. You understand what I'm saying? It's not just black doctors, it's doctors, period. But we think somehow, we keep telling ourselves that, oh, child, if I get a black doctor, he going to be looking out for me, or she going to be looking out for me. No, they're all getting trained by the same people, and they're all getting paid by the same people. So this issue here is, so just to recap this part of the conversation, taking it back to like what Halle Berry said or whatever, like I said, that could be a hodgepodge of some things going on in her life, but there are many layers to this whole thing that we're seeing, in these ongoing online battles between men and women, black men and black women, the red pill versus that pill and all that other stuff. There are many layers to this thing. All right. And what I'm just bringing up is yet another layer to it. And that's the chemical or the pharmaceutical part of it, where women and men are being introduced to this stuff, and this is a regular part of their lives. Let me I came across this one. Now, this is a black woman. Very hard pressed to find any black people publicly talking about these things. Not saying that they're not out there, because I know they are, but this particular topic about the impact of these SSRIs, I haven't seen too many black people publicly talking about it, at least on the forums I've been on. But again, I'm not saying they're not. I'm just saying I wasn't finding them. So, but here's one here that I do want to play for you. Let me get to here and play this. And then we're going to move on to our final topic tonight here. And we're going to go through that.
And while all of y'all talking about Lexapro, baby, I was on Sertraline. Where the ad? Where's the ad for that? Why ain't nobody talk about Sertraline? Lexapro be y'all go to. No, baby. Sertraline, I didn't give a fuck about shit. Do you hear me? I didn't give a fuck about a motherfucking thing. When they put me on that damn Sertraline, I was like, oh, bills? What bills? Who gives a fuck about a bill? It'll get paid when it get paid. What? Depression? You know what? I woke up, I felt fine. I felt great, actually. Sertraline, my thoughts was quiet. Like, I can't explain it. Like, instead of me thinking about this, me thinking about tomorrow, me thinking about what happened yesterday, me thinking before I go to bed at night was no longer there. Like, I didn't have a single thought or a single fuck. And while all
And I want you to, take a look at some of the comments here. I'm on sertraline, 100 milligrams a day, calm as hell. And then someone else said, I'm on it as well, and I refuse to stop it ever. And Zoloft Queen stand up. Zoloft plus Wellbutrin. I can't wait to get my refill. My job is in the midst of doing layoffs, and I haven't stressed not once. We just high hopes and prayers. And I'm seeing, as I was going through these, here's one here, that Zoloft will have me numb. I couldn't cry, nothing. And, someone saying, sertraline is wonderful. And it's just, I was going through some of the comments, and it's just like quite a few people were just like, man, I'm so glad I'm on it. But we've been trained to not even think of what are, like that woman was just saying, what are the root causes? What are the underlying causes that got me to this point in the first place? My point is that it's, this generation has been trained that take a pill and it will fix it. And what I'm telling you is these pharmaceutical companies are the same evil, demonic institutions that took part in testing, doing endless tests on your ancestors. They're still doing it to this day. And they're not just testing on black people, they're testing on everybody. And what I'm saying is this should raise some serious flags. I am not saying that none of these things work because I'm sure they do. But anything coming from these pharmaceutical companies do have some very damning side effects to them. And a lot of times people like to play those down. But what I'm saying is, no, you need to focus. You need to really pay attention to that. This stuff that they're talking about where it actually numbs you. It numbs you from, feeling any kind of affection of family members and stuff like that. That's not, you ain't going to get that from a fig leaf plant. You're not going to get that from taking some, some soursop or whatever. You're not going to get those kind of things where I drink a cup of soursop tea and now all of a sudden I just don't have any feeling for my children. Hold on. That's a whole nother level. That's a whole nother level. So, just pay very close attention to that because this is a big thing. And I looked at the numbers. Women, black women are twice as likely to be on these things than men. And what it is, and then when you look at the men, it doesn't necessarily mean that men are better or healthier. It doesn't mean that at all. No, don't walk away with that. It just, the whole picture says, be it men and women, a lot of our people, unfortunately, are undiagnosed, meaning that they haven't taken the step to get the attention that they need in the area of health, mental health. And mental health doesn't always mean you got to go to a psychiatrist. In fact, any psychiatrist that if their first flip is to get you on these types of medications, I would say you need to find someone else, quite honestly, because this is some very, 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 very scary things. And if you are on it, this is another thing I heard too. They said, and you're like hearing this stuff and you're like, yeah, I need to get off of it. In fact, I'm going to stop now. Don't do that. You don't want to do it because once you get on it, you have to do that in tiers. You got to do it in layers. You got to get off of that gradually with the assistance of someone who's licensed and knows how to do that. Do you understand what I'm saying? But never go cold turkey on that stuff, because once they get you on it, if you try to go cold turkey and snatch yourself off of it, it can be a lot worse for you. Please hear me on that. So if you're on it and you're trying to get off of it, find someone that is licensed and can help you do it gradually, but never go cold turkey on it, because it's very, very dangerous. Very, very dangerous. All right, let's move on to our final topic here this evening. And again, really appreciate you guys hanging in there with me. Real quick, we're going to revisit this, and because of time, I'm not going to spend too much time on this at all, but I will, we do need to talk about this, and that is these data centers. These data centers, this is an ongoing topic that is getting bigger, and bigger. A lot of people are out here saying that, or who have been out here talking about our vote counts and, the power of the vote. And if you just vote, these companies and the powers that shouldn't be, they're going to go, it's like holy water to them if you vote against their agendas. No, it doesn't work that way. I told you, money drives politics. And I am finding story after story after story after story where communities, it doesn't matter, white, black, it doesn't matter. When these people decide that they're going to drop a data center into these communities, they just do it. It doesn't matter how the people voted, they're just doing it. What was I going to say? I'll share with you real quick. I took Nicole, I told you, we drove around. It's huge data center not too far from where we are now. And only thing we could walked away with is how dead it felt. I mean, they had some very nice things in the area, nice little restaurants and stuff like that. But the area just felt so dead. It felt dead. It just did. I mean, everything was clean and polished and all that. I grew up part of my childhood, I grew up in Philadelphia. I grew up in a time when factories were like on a downhill and all of that. So I remember driving past the, Tasty Cake Company and all that. So factories, I used to see that all the time. And so I'm mentioning that because a lot of these factories, they used to have cars and all the employees full of cars, because the employees, they will be there all the time. You had people who worked first shift, second shift, or third shift. And it was always cars there. These data centers, they're large buildings, but there are hardly any cars in there because everything inside, for the most part, is automated. They may have a couple of hundred staff in there, but that's it. So it's dead. It made the whole area. That was the one thing I could say. And Nicole, one day I'm going to bring her on and we can talk about it more. We did film some things, but I checked the video and I had it stuck in slow motion mode. So I'm like, what the heck, man? So anyway, I'm going to go down there and because I want y'all to really get us to see this stuff, and it's impacting everyone. It has an impact on your water supply, your air, even sound. If you listen, and when you drive by some of these, there's this constant hum that goes on in the air because they're generators and stuff that they have constantly going on. And you may not think much of that, but that does have a direct impact on wildlife. And it does. And they've done studies on this and all of that. So this is a topic that you really need to be paying very close attention to. The other thing is that I've heard people say, well, to fight against this stuff, we need to just stop using ChatGPT or whatever. Honey, this ain't more than just ChatGPT. Let me show you, because these data centers aren't just stored for your ChatGPT sessions. They're storing anything at all. The goal of these people is to take everything that we physically see with our natural eyes. They want to digitize it. That's what they want to do. And to do that, you're going to need a lot of data centers to be able to do that. You're going to need a lot of memory, a lot of storage for capabilities here. I want to play for you this video of this woman, because this is some of the types of data that's going into these data centers.
Many new cars have this feature that I'm going to call the Eye of Sauron. This is a driver monitor system that watches your eyes to see what you're looking at if you're paying attention, all of that. To make things even worse, you can't truly fully disable this. You can disable some of the warnings, but it'll always be watching you. You pair that with the fact that the automakers also have your GPS coordinates at all times. And now you can see why I call this the Eye of Sauron. They're always watching. And finally, this version's very easy to see, but automakers are looking to maybe put some driver monitors up in this area, hide it in the dash, maybe somewhere in the steering wheel. In the future, you won't be able to tell that your car has it, so maybe it's time to buy an old car. Many new cars have this feature that I'm going to call the Eye of Sauron.
So yeah, so you got that. I mean, and so in 2020, we're in 2026 and 2027. You're going to start seeing it's law now, where basically what's going to happen is cars are going to have an increase of basically it's a system that's going to monitor you as the driver. It's going to monitor you at a whole nother level, and that information is going to go to these one of many data warehouses and all of that stuff. Let me see if I can find, because that was one video here, but I had one that I saved, I put aside here. This woman was actually telling a story about, let's see, where was it? Because if I can't find it, unfortunately, I'll just have to tell you, but I think I could find it because I just was looking at it. Oh, here it is. Here it is. Here it is.
You guys are going to want to watch this whole video. You know how we were just talking about the 2027 vehicle mandate with the driver surveillance?
Mm-hmm.
This lady has had a very disturbing firsthand experience. Check it out.
I rented a car in Europe, and as the woman handed me the car keys, she said, this is a brand new car, and she was like super excited about it. She was like, it's 2026, and I was like, awesome. No one's had a chance to like fart or smoke in it. This will be great. And I'd driven it for a day or two, and I was getting on a highway. It was a 6-lane highway, and all of a sudden the gas stopped working, and I'm pressing on the gas. I can't get the car to go. So the car is dinging. It's making all this noise, and I can't figure out what's going on. And I look at the dashboard, and in English, it says, sit up straight, we can't find your eyes. Why do you need to see my eyes? That was my first thought. And I'm short, so I sit low in the seat, and I guess, I don't know, maybe I'd been driving a while and I'd kind of slouch down more instead of sitting upright. And when I sat upright, the gas would work once again. And so I pressed the gas, but I was slowing down enough that it was going to cause a traffic hazard. And the thing is, it knew I wasn't asleep because I was pressing on the gas. So it knew I was awake. It just wanted to see my eyes. So once I sat upright and leaned forward, I guess it did facial recognition. And then it says, may I send you these results to a third party? To which I said, no, you may not. No. Who is the third party? Who, first of all, who's watching me drive the car to begin with? Secondly, who is the third party you're sending it to? And lastly, it is so dangerous. There are so many scenarios where losing control of the gas can put a car in a very dangerous situation. Like, what if I was pulling out in front of a semi-truck?
Right.
What if I was going over a railroad track? And the absolute worst part is the argument for this is to combat sleepy drivers. And the truth is, if you fall asleep while you're driving, you're not going to be pushing down all the way on the gas. You're going to let up. You're going to relax. No one keeps their foot pointed while they're asleep. And if they say, well, what about cruise control? Then just take off cruise control. Disable cruise control in cars. That's the solution. Not, I need to see your eyeballs for the car to work. There's so many dangerous implications for this. But even if you're using it just for the good implication, you know, sleepy drivers, we need to see eyeballs at all times, it's still wrong.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah, that's wild.
Oh my God.
And so, yeah, so that's what's coming for new cars, new vehicles starting in 2027. So, yeah, we definitely will not be getting an EV at all, not in this house. If you have one and you like it, then that's good on you. That was 2 nights ago. We were in Tempe. My wife and I, we were out driving, and she said, I need to stop at Trader Joe's. So we stopped at Trader Joe's in Tempe, and this car, it was one of those Waymos, was in the parking lot. I'm looking for a parking spot, and it was a Waymo in front of me, and it was just like driving around in the parking lot. I happened to be like right behind it, and it was going along. All of a sudden, it just stopped, and then it started backing up. And my crazy self sometimes. I stayed there. I was like, yeah, hit me, because we need a new car. But if I didn't move, it kept going. It kept backing up. And Nicole's like, Dwayne, you better move, And so I backed up, but it started backing up. It was driving and it started backing up. And then it stopped and then it kept going forward. And I looked at Nicole, I was like, what was that about? Like, it was just wild. My point is that all of this stuff, like what she talked about, the car talking about sit up straight. Listen, if I got a car that talked to me like that, look, be like this, be just like that with that steering wheel. Y'all know what this means. I'll take that right back to the dealership. No, sir. No, sir. No, sir. I'm not having a conversation with my car. No, sir. And you ain't gonna be correcting me and all that. That ain't happening. But all of that data that's where it's going, to these data centers. That's my point. That's why I'm bringing this stuff up here. And they're going to continue to build. Everything about your life is being stored in these places. That's why they're building these massive amount of things here. And again, for going back to the people who said, well, we need to stop using like ChatGPT or some of these other AI things. Okay, then stop using your iCloud if you got an iPhone. For those of you who using iCloud to store your pictures, to store your emails and all that. So where do you think that's going? In the cloud, in the sky? No, it's going into these massive data centers. And they're going to continue to build this stuff. And when people getting all this tech with the digital watch and all of that stuff, and I said, that ain't touching this. You ain't touching this skin. I mean, it's bad enough I got this phone, but no, I'm not doing the watch thing. And then there's technology now where they're trying to put stuff in your eyeballs and then, you got the glasses with the, no, if you're wearing the Bluetooth stuff, don't do that. I see so many people every day walking around with the Bluetooth in their ear. And there's been too many studies that are starting to show now it is having an adverse effect on your brain. That Bluetooth stuff. So please don't. If you got the digital watch, I know it's giving you some very good information, especially if you're a walker or you do exercise and all that. I totally get it. But you do not want to have that kind of radiation in close proximity to your skin for all day. You don't want it, and you don't need it. Because it is literally throwing things off in your nervous system. Okay, we'll talk about that in another broadcast. We'll go into even more detail, and I have Nicole get into that. But yeah, so I just wanted to touch bases on those the data centers. I actually went there and I actually did some filming and all of that. And I'm telling you, these things are massive, and there are people all over the country that are pushing against these things, and to no avail. And it doesn't matter. I mean, I've seen white communities and black communities. It doesn't matter. It does not matter. And so it's just something to take note of. So just be aware of what's going on in your town and your community and all of that, because it is having an adverse effect on it. It just makes me mad, Todd, when I think about it. All the data centers they're building, like in Arizona. This is a freaking desert. This is a desert. And you're talking about, and water is already scarce, but you're just stacking them all up in here. It just makes no sense to me. But it does make sense when you realize that the people behind this, they want to replace you. And in order to do that, they're going to need massive amount of storage space to do so. So this is all part of it. Okay, so they've been telling you this. So anyway, that's all I have for you guys for this broadcast. As always, thank you so much for tuning in. If you want to add to this conversation, you could do so. Do it on the comments section below. If you are someone, remember we have that digital library. You get access to over 800 books, and and they're all in PDF format. They're not just books, but also research and everything like that. So if you're into like studying history, Black history, deep dives into biblical, intense biblical, investigations. I'll put it that way, where you have agriculture, archaeologists. That's the word I'm looking for. People who are really taking the Bible and are really looking at this thing and like, okay, let me prove it with actual science. We got a section on that. We got a whole section on Black history, very vast section on that. We got a section on African history. We got a section on the medical industry and all of that. We got a section on that as well. Make sure if you do decide to do that, make sure that you have a Gmail account, because that's what's required so you can have gain access to it. Okay. But yeah, just wanted to mention that to you as well. But other than that, thank you so much for tuning in to this broadcast. Make sure you check out our store as always, sambatree.com. Again, it's sambatree.com. Make sure you check it out. Thank you so much. As always, you guys take care, and big shout out as always to our beautiful people in the chat. Thank you so much as always. Thank you so much. Take care. I'll see you again the next time. Take care.